back to what we saw last night, and what was the deciding factor, did you think, last night? S.A., you want to go?
Well, I just think that the time of possession, Miami controlling the football the way that it did, moving the ball offensively, you got to give credit where credit is due. You had multiple drives of 15 plays or more. That really stands out in your mind because of the patience of Carson Beck. And while we talk about him, we have some trepidation about him from time to time. The bottom line is at Georgia and now at Miami, the brother is 37-5 as a starter in college football. So we got to give credit where credit is due. He showed up last night, 23 of 37, 62% of his passes, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. He was balling, scrambling for the game-winning touchdown. Obviously, that was a big play, big moment. I don't know what Ole Miss was thinking where nobody scanned the quarterback. They were just guarding defenders, but nobody thought about the quarterback. Look at how wide open the whole left side of the field is for Carson Beck to run in for that touchdown. But still, that's just one play. In the end, it was a fantastic game. It was a great game. Beck showed up. Chambliss obviously showed up for Ole Miss as well. You just look at it, a play here, they basically could have decided anything, and Miami was able to hold on and do what it needed to do, and now they're in the national championship game. I give all the credit in the world to Carson Beck and the patience they showed offensively. Very confident in moving the football against Ole Miss. That's exactly what they did when it counted most, and that's why they're going on to the national championship game.
Well, it was simple. It was a tale of two different teams doing two different things. One team was able to sustain drives, and the other team, even though they were able to move the ball, they weren't able to sustain as many drives. I look back early in the game, and RC, you don't get to choose when this is a key moment in the game. I think for the first quarter, Ole Miss missed opportunities. Those early 3-and-outs really came back to haunt them because now when the game started to get active, you don't have as many opportunities as you once had. When you start to see 12 plays approaching, 13 plays approaching, 14 plays approaching, 15 plays approaching in one specific drive, it's extremely alarming. And for as explosive as Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss has been all year, this thing sticks out the most. Ole Miss piled up 210 yards on first down, 188 yards on second down, but the Rebels finished with 0 yards on third down. When you analyze that, that is not a winning formula. And yet, they were still in the game with potentially an opportunity to win it at the end. But shots out goes to, the Miami Hurricanes because they've been playing with an edge that we haven't seen them have for a long time. If you want to call it the legends that's on the sideline, if you want to call it, the head coach, if you want to call it the quarterback, it's a collective that's down there, and they are a very dangerous team that can match up with anybody.
You know what? I love that you came analytically this morning. Because I'm going to break it down a little bit easier for you. And I know you're going to hate this.
I love it.
The Miami Hurricanes are the most traditionally SEC football team in all the country. It ain't Florida. It ain't LSU. It ain't Auburn. It ain't Alabama. It ain't Georgia. This is the first time Ole Miss this season has faced a team that plays like we historically believe SEC teams play.
Does Miami need to win a title in order for us to say, is the U officially back?
I wouldn't say that because the only reason why I believe that the U was ever a thing was not only did they have collegiate success, they had NFL legend success. When you start to look back and you say, hey, Warren Sapp was on that team, Ed Reed was on that team, Sean Taylor, rest in peace, was on that team. Oh, this person was on that team, Santana Moss, Andre Johnson, Greg Olson, Jeremy Shockey. Like all these individuals that were on this team not only performed at a high level on a college level, they then took their talents to the NFL and still performed at a high level, which made everybody start to think, we all have those Ryan Clark, Louisiana State University, Cam Newton, swag, technical. Like those things when everybody was saying, blase blah, the U, blase blah, the U, blase blah, the U. When you start to see that, you can't say if they're back yet, but it sure felt special to see what we consider them to be underdogs in many of these games and still find a way to, like you said, RC, be physical, dominated the point of attack. And one of the things that stood out to me was, as the offensive side, they're running the ball on 3rd and 3. They're running the ball on 4th and 2. Basically saying, stop me. You know what's happening? Hey, stop me. That's what I would say the U has that kind of flavor and feeling that we have always seen down there.
This team and the U isn't back until they win a championship.
Okay.
They didn't become the U because they was gangsters. They became the U because they were champions, and then they did it their way. You remember the films of Jonathan Vilma flipping people in the middle of the field. You remember seeing Michael Irvin jousting with the football. You remember all of these things about these teams because they were iconic moments, but you don't get iconic moments until you hoist the trophy, until you could say that our team was the best team in all of the world. Because being a champion says we're not just a great group of individuals, we're a team, we're a cohesive unit. We're a unit that can go on the field, have one goal, and everybody plays toward that goal and accomplish it. Now, when you see Edgerrin James at the coin toss and you see Ray Lewis at the coin toss and Michael Irvin sweating more than any other player that's on the field, you understand they are starting to get the feeling and the nostalgia that what they see on the field is exactly what it needs to be. But until Carson Beck and until Mario Cristobal walks off of the stage and is celebrated as a champion, the U is not back because you got to win championships and sustain that level of play. That's who they were. They weren't just a flash in the pan. That was a consistent level of excellence, and it starts with championships.
Trifecta all the way. You ain't back until you win the chip, because that's what they did back in the day. Because if the U goes out in the national championship game and loses on their home turf and finishes as runner-up status, we appreciate what you've done. Great, great season. You're a good team, but you ain't those dudes unless you close the deal. That is the standard that Miami once established, and that's what they'll be looking to reestablish come a week from Monday night, January 19th, for the national championship game.
For the game, former Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin had this to say on social media following the loss. Amazing effort and grit, and Ole Miss football, best season ever in the history of Ole Miss. Love you guys. I'm going to just leave that there and ask you guys this question. How will you remember this Ole Miss season, Cam?
First off, that's a troll move right there. It's one of those things where I look at that locker room and nobody really gives those individuals enough mic volume to be heard because, hey, you got Charlie Weiss. That's supposed to, he's probably already in Baton Rouge right now. You have Joe Cox. You have George McDonald, Kevin Smith, Dave Stevens, Billy Glasscock, and more that was on Ole Miss's staff and now is transitioning to LSU. Oh, and by the way, while they were preparing for, the semifinals game versus Miami, they were transitioning back and forth. If they wasn't transitioning back and forth, they was in constant communication of, LSU, how are we going to recruit? Hey, what's going to be the plan? We're already in phase 1 of our offseason program. There's a lot of controversy for me that I feel like the kids were cheated because as you're trying to prepare to be the best version of yourself, you're not being asked or directed from a person who's all the way bought in. And as a player, I would feel a certain type of way. But you don't have no say-so to kind of speak of it. If you're going into a receiver's room, if you're going into, the offensive room, your coach, which is 1 foot in and 1 foot out, he's distracted because of LSU shenanigans, but we're playing it for the biggest game in school history. He's not all the way locked in and bought in. That's my mentality. Man, my heart goes out to everybody in Ole Miss in that locker room specifically because they weren't dealing with the same issues that Miami dealt with, but yet still competed at a high level, and that's something to be, mentioned.
This Ole Miss team should be remembered as the team that changed the perception of who Ole Miss was. Ole Miss is not considered an SEC powerhouse. You don't look at this football team and feel like it's littered with NFL starting quality talent. Kejuan Lacey is talented. Trinidad Chambliss comes from a smaller school. He's from Ferris State. This is a team that you won't think five-star. You won't think first-round draft pick, top 10. And they fought to get to this position. And I disagree with you that they get to be in locker rooms and looking at coaches like you're halfway in, you're halfway out. Everybody in college is halfway in, halfway out now. There are thousands of players in the transfer portal that think that they can have a better situation somewhere else. Back in the day, that's a good argument. I got a coach who wants to go to greener pastures. I got a coach who is doing double time coaching at Ole Miss and coaching at LSU. I can tell you this. Most of those players on that team, if they felt like they could go to LSU and start and was going to get more bank, they going to go to LSU because that's the smart decision. Then people wasn't looking at it like that. They were looking at who was still there. I'm looking at Charlie Weiss Jr. saying, thank you for pulling double time. I'm looking at Kevin Smith saying, thank you for pulling double time. I'm looking at Pete Golding, who chose to stay, who we weren't even talking about as a head coaching candidate, who put everything he had into coaching that team. That's what's wrong with the world. We all want to look at all these things we ain't got. Look at what you do have. That's what Ole Miss should be doing. Look at what we did accomplish. Let's not look at the fact that Lane Kiffin left. Let's look at that Pete Golding stayed. Let's look at all these players who bought in to be what we could be, and they all played over their heads. This team exceeded expectations. They overachieved. Where they are, you're right, nobody thought that they would be there, whether it was with Lane Kiffin or without. This is a team you think of in 60 and 62 was the last time they was playing to win national championships. Hell, Billy Cannon was winning Heismans at LSU at that point. This is a great season for this team. Everyone there should be credited and commended for what they accomplished.
One would argue they overachieved until you watch their talent on the field, and then you'd be like, they really didn't overachieve. They belonged. Because them brothers, they got some ballers on Ole Miss, no doubt about it. All right, and they deserve all the credit in the world, and so does Pete Golding for the job that he's done in winning those 2 playoff games. And with them competing the way that they completed last night, they were in a position to win this game. It's just that Miami drove down the field and got the game-winning touchdown. I mean, they were up 27-24. Let's understand that in the last two minutes of the game. So we get that part. But I'm not going to tell you to look at Ole Miss and say they've arrived. This team has. The program remains to be seen. Lane Kiffin did what he did over the previous 6 years. It was Lane Kiffin that got those players, obviously with the help of his assistant coaches. Of course, we know that. But it was Lane Kiffin they came to the program to play for. It was Lane Kiffin who hired those assistant coaches. And so now that he's gone, what you going to do moving forward? What level of sustained success are you going to be able to achieve? We got to make sure we remind everybody it ain't about what you do 1 year when you're talking about the program. When you're talking about 1 year, you're talking about that team, those brothers that we saw on the field last night. Why do you think you see Miami with a Ray Lewis, with a Michael Irvin, with an Edgerrin James, and all of these Ed Reed and all of these cats on the sideline with Miami? Because what they did, they're starving for that to be recaptured. Ole Miss is starving for a level of sustained success so we can view their program the way some of these elite programs in the nation are going to be reviewed. So I don't take anything away from this team right now. I don't take anything away from these players. But what I want to see, RC, what I want to see, Cam and Shae, is what you're going to do now that Lane Kiffin is going and he's going to LSU to rebuild something. You're better this year than LSU was with what the job that Brian Kelly did. So what you going to do next year? And what you going to do the year after that? That is what will determine how we view this program. This team is another matter. Ain't nothing to talk about with them. Those brothers are ballers, and they all deserve all the credit in the world. But what you're going to do in the next few years to follow will determine how we view this program.
Indiana reminds me more of Nick Saban-led Alabama team more than any other team in the last couple of years, because it's a team where the personality is not over-exuberant, Well, the face of that team is Coach Kurt Signetti. Nobody else. You can't tell me if Fernando Mendoza has personality, the receiver has personality. You can't probably name me multiple players on defense. That's not what that team is. That team is led with just do your job. Be the best version of yourself. We got 5 to 6 seconds of each and every play of strain and get the most from it by holding yourself accountable. Well, if they don't win tonight, I look at it through the lens of they are also ahead of the curve. We've never looked at Indiana in the way that we looked at Indiana now. Do they have the best talented team? No. But some will argue, even myself would say, they're probably the most or the best coached team in all of college football, and it has shown. The way that they create distractions and disrupt opposing teams, whether in the run game, whether in the defensive side of the ball, they capitalize on those mistakes, and they bring a physical brand of football that not a lot of teams expect because of the notion it's Indiana. So I don't think that it'll be a disappointment. It'll just be something that, okay, they're right on schedule for the next year.
Go ahead, Shae.
I think it would be disappointing. And the reason why I think it would be disappointing because it's not a Big Ten or an SEC school you're going up against in the national championship game. And because of that and because of the veneer or the perception of those conferences, at least before this playoffs, being considered superior, I think if you're Indiana, you're representing the Big Ten, and Michigan handled its business 2 years ago, and Ohio State handled its business last year, and you, having never won a national championship in your school's history, find yourself in the pristine position of being able, just a game away from being able to pull that off. I do think that in a lot of people's eyes, it would come across as a disappointment because let's call it what it is. They are the favorites. They're the favorites tonight against Oregon. And if they handle their business, they'll be the favorites on the national championship game against Miami. Having said all of that, I think it's something that we have to remind ourselves about when they went up against Oregon and they beat them 30-20. They were struggling. I mean, you got a running game that's been dominant all year long that just finished rushing for over about 215 yards against Alabama when they annihilated Alabama 38-3, over a week ago. And now here you are sitting around and you're reminded of the fact that their running game wasn't that effective against Oregon earlier this season. With Mendoza against the pass, who's been elite, like a top 5, top 8 quarterback in the nation against pressure. Oregon blitzed him about 41% of the time. He wasn't as effective against Oregon as he's been against everybody else. When it gets to this level of play, as you two know considerably more than me, palms get sweaty, backsides get tight. And if you're going to have struggles in the regular season and those struggles come to the postseason and you leave Oregon in this game in a position to win it because they're pressuring Mendoza and he looks a bit rattled there, we say, Oregon might have a chance. And you've got people like E.J. Manuel who's doing an outstanding job covering college football for us. He was on my show the other day, guys. He's got Oregon beating Indiana. That's one of the reasons why.
Well, it's not a disappointment if they don't win a championship. Shae Cornette, I'm about to put her out there, went to one Indiana football game when she was in school, and she loves sports. You know why?
One.
Because not even they cared about Indiana football. You know who cares about Indiana football right now? Everybody. Courtney Cronin wanted to throw hands with me on this show when I was just talking about their perception. It wasn't even my opinion. Mark Cuban is donating all the money he was going to have to give Luka. He's trying to give it to Indiana now so they can go win championships. This year is already a success. It's been 80 years since they won a Big Ten championship, and they did that. They ain't never won a Rose Bowl. Every expectation that's been created by this team has been because they've overexceeded all the other expectations. Do I expect them to win? Yes. Is this season a disappointment if they don't? No. Remember, it took Saban 3 years at Bama to win a championship. They are right on. Actually, they're ahead of schedule. It ain't no disappointment.